The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest took place from September 8th to the 11th, 9 AD, when an alliance of Germanic tribes ambushed Roman legions, led by Publius Quinctilius Varus. The alliance was led by Arminius, a Germanic officer of Varus's auxiliary. Arminius had acquired Roman citizenship and had received a Roman military education, which allowed him to deceive the Roman commander and anticipate the Roman army's tactical responses. At the heart of the revolt against the Romans was the figure of Arminius. Born a prince of the Cherusci tribe, Arminius was part of the Roman-friendly faction of the tribe. He learned Latin and served in the Roman military, which gained him Roman citizenship and the rank of X. After serving with distinction in the Great Illyrian Revolt, he was sent to Germania to aid the local governor Publius Quinctilius Varus in completing the Roman conquest of the Germanic tribes. While in this capacity, Arminius secretly plotted a Germanic revolt against Roman rule, which culminated in the ambush and destruction of 3 Roman legions in the Teutoburg Forest. In the aftermath of the battle, Arminius fought retaliatory invasions by the Roman general Germanicus in the battles of Pons Longi, Edistoviso, and the Angravarian Wall, and deposed a rival, the Marcomanni king Marabodus. Germanic nobles, afraid of Arminius's growing power, assassinated him in 21 AD. The Roman historian Tacitus designated Arminius as the liberator of the Germanic tribes and commended him for having fought the Roman Empire to a standstill at the peak of its power. During the unification of Germany in the 19th century, Arminius was hailed by German nationalists as a symbol of German unity and freedom. Publius Quinctilius Varus, commander of the Roman military in Germania, was a promising leader. Emperor Augustus appointed him as quaestor in 22 BC. As a young man, even though the office usually required the holder to be at least 30. Varus married the emperor's great-niece after his term as governor ended, ensuring him a spot in the emperor's inner circle. Varus was not assigned to Germania for his military abilities, but rather his political acumen. His skill as a politician was likely sought out by the emperor in order to deal with the factionalism that plagued the Germanic tribes. Leading up to the ambush, Arminius's carefully laid plans nearly unraveled when his father-in-law, Segistus, informed Varus of Arminius's treachery. But Varus disbelieved this report, perhaps because Segistus had not approved of the marriage of his daughter, and thus bore a grudge against Arminius. As late summer arrived, escalating unrest became Varus' main concern. Other counselors to Varus advised that there was not enough time left in the season to put down unrest and also make it back to winter camp. Arminius suggested that instead of retracing the army's usual return route, they could achieve both goals if they went on campaign against the Angrivari. By going through Angrivari territory, the route back would be shorter, and the Romans would also be able to put down the revolt. A plan that Varus faithfully accepted. On the morning of September 7th, 9 AD, the Roman army headed back to their winter camp. The Roman troops had only recently been paid, which resulted in large numbers of coins being distributed to the army. A high density of coins would, some 2,000 years later, serve as an archaeological marker of the battle site. That evening, Arminius told Varus that he would be breaking off to finish gather the Cherusci auxiliaries and would be back with the main army in 2 or 3 days. It was the men's final meeting. Arminius left behind a small number of Cherusci, nominally to act as guides, but their true purpose was to act as spies. The loss of Arminius cut the size of the Roman army by a quarter and deeply curtailed its scouting abilities. On the morning of September 8th, the Roman army decamped and continued snaking its way through the area's thick forest, which slowed movement and strung the army out. The line of Roman soldiers was now perilously stretched out. The procession of men thought to be around 10 miles long. It was at this moment that the Germanic warriors struck. The attackers surrounded the Roman troops and rained down javelins. The initial attack was a brief skirmish aimed at tiring out the Roman troops and causing damage to their supply. The Romans' luck went from bad to worse as a torrential downpour began. Unable to advance, Varus ordered the army to make camp. Varus called a war council. Casualty reports indicated only light losses, but the baggage trains and scout cavalry were particularly vulnerable. Varus decided to undertake a night march to escape, but the Romans walked into another trap set at the foot of Kalkriese. The area consisted of swampland and a great bog. The road was further blocked by a trench, and towards the forest, an earthen wall had been built along the roadside, permitting the Germanic fighters to attack the Romans from cover. The Romans made a desperate attempt to storm the wall, but failed. And the highest-ranking officer next to Varus, Legatus Pneumonius Valla, abandoned the troops, riding off with the cavalry. His retreat was in vain, as he was overtaken by the Germanic cavalry in camp. The Germanic warriors then stormed the disintegrating Roman forces and inflicted a brutal slaughter. Varus, upon seeing all hope was lost, killed himself by falling on his sword. Arminius cut off his head and sent it as a present to King Marbod of the Marcomanni. Roman casualties have been estimated around 18,000 dead. Tacitus wrote that many officers were sacrificed by the Germanic forces as part of their indigenous religious ceremonies. Others were ransomed and some soldiers were enslaved. The victory was followed by a clean sweep of all Roman forts, garrisons, and cities east of the Rhine. Upon hearing of the defeat, the Emperor Augustus, according to the Roman historian Suetonius, was so shaken that he stood butting his head against the walls of his palace, repeatedly shouting, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions." Teutoburg Forest is commonly seen as one of the most important defeats in Roman history, bringing the triumphant period of expansion under Augustus to an end. The outcome of this battle dissuaded the Romans from their ambition of conquering Germania, and is considered one of the most important events in European history. Retaliatory campaigns were commanded by Tiberius and Germanicus, and would enjoy success, but the Rhine would eventually become the border between the Roman Empire and Germania. The Romans would not launch another major incursion into Germania until the reign of Marcus Aurelius during the Marcomannic Wars.